The Oklahoma Sooners got another defensive commitment. Why is it a big one?
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I'm John Williams, and that is Jay Smith. Welcome back, Jay, after his week off. Hope you and the fam had a great time. You can check out his work over at Unfair Sports on YouTube. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. And we got to start with this. Matthew Nelson, the Arkansas product, commits to the Oklahoma Sooners on Sunday, Jay.
So the Sooners are spending a lot of time in I'm not sure what Arkansas
the natural
is called.
state.
The natural state. We're going to go with the natural state. Yes, they are the natural state. And that's like 5
Oklahoma
commits.
East.
Right. We just call them Oklahoma East. That's like 5 commits that the Sooners have pulled out of Arkansas as of late. And, getting 2 more with Ja'Cory Smith and now Matthew Nelson out of Bryan, Arkansas. I like the size and what he offers. He's an edge, 6'5", roughly 215 pounds. If you bulk him up, get him about 240 while also maintaining the twitchiness because he has very long limbs, got long arms, long legs. He's very lanky-ish, but he still looks like he can pack on the weight, John. And so Miguel Chavis or potentially Ty Bates has picked themselves up a guy that could be a massive threat down the line, mainly because he's 6'5" and he has great movement. Watching his film, I'm really excited about this pickup.
Yeah, so a lot of people are going to look at the ratings, the lack of ratings, and they're going to wonder why this is such a big deal. Again, just look at the offers, look at the evaluations. He's kind of flown under the radar. He's not a dude that's had a ton of offers, but after Oklahoma did, Mississippi State came through and Missouri came through with an offer. So it's not like people aren't coming to understand that the kid is talented. It's just one of those players that kind of just got lost in the mix a little bit. But now people are starting to discover who Matthew Nelson is. Oklahoma was in on it early, and they were able to quickly wrap up this recruitment. I mean, they offered him back at the beginning of May.
Yep.
And here we are just a little over a week into June, and they get the commitment from Matthew Nelson. 6'5", you mentioned it, 215 pounds. That, I think, is going to be the biggest question for him moving forward. Can he get himself up to the 230, 240? That's going to be his biggest kind of job and responsibility as he maintains his play athleticism, his play speed, and his strength. I don't have any concerns about that, but he's going to need to add the weight if he wants to continue to play the edge. Now, if they have ideas of him playing some cheetah, okay, that he could probably play that a little bit lighter and be a little bit more off ball. That's fine.
Yeah.
But to play along the line of scrimmage, 240 is going to have to be kind of the minimum. We saw R. Mason Thomas, at 230 kind of have a hard time whenever he did get in games being able to hold up against the run. But as he continued to bulk up, he got better and better. So he's got the natural length. I mean, 6'5", that's going to keep offensive tackles from being able to engage. And that's why that length is so important, because offensive tackles are getting bigger. They're getting longer. They're using their arms to keep defensive ends from being able to get around the corner. And Matthew Nelson, having that length, is going to be able to keep those shorter armed tackles from engaging and disrupting his pass rush. So I like the addition. I think this is a good pickup for Oklahoma, because it shows how deep they're getting into their scouting. It's not very surface level. They're going to the depths of the 2026 recruiting class, not just because of the coaching staff, but also because of Jim Nagy. But Nelson is another one of those guys that maybe it just is going to be one of those diamonds in the rough that they get in 2026.
Yeah, and that's what I look at it is. This is definitely a Jim Nagy special, right? He's a player of, look, he has NFL traits, 6'5", 215 pounds, and it looks like, again, his frame can pick up an additional 15, 20 pounds. This feels like something that Nagy would have pointed out. And when he got the offer, we talked about it a little bit. And that was the thing we noticed. Like, yeah, I bet you Nagy said, hey, guys, this is one. I like him. I like that you brought him to my attention. I would recommend going after him specifically because NFL traits are what's going to be critical to be successful in the SEC. And you get guys that are unrated. I mean, Jared Verse was one that was unrated. Remember, former defensive player of the year. Gosh, and I just had a good blank on him a couple minutes ago. But he played at Buffalo. He was unranked as well. There's a lot of players that come. Khalil Mack. There you go. Khalil Mack was unranked. It happens. It happens quite often. And so I look at this as, let me say it this way. He's going to have to put on pounds. And he's going to have to go through some development. Well, you need to have people there to practice with as well, right? You need to fill a full roster. You need to fill, 105 or 115-ish right now until they decide to really tier it all the way down. So I know they've grandfathered in some others, but you're going to need to have at least 105 players. They're not all going to be 5 stars. They may not all be 4 stars. You want some of these development players because not only will they give you some really good guys for practice, but if they develop properly and you show your ability to develop, they could skyrocket and give yourselves another player that could potentially make it to the league. So I like the Matthew Nelson pickup mainly because I see him as a player that's going to go into development. And if he reaches his high potential, he could see himself being a day 2 draft pick, no problem.
Yeah, the length is going to impress a lot of scouts out there. And
if he's able to
get on the field and if he's able to produce, that's going to give him that tape that he needs to be able to do that. And again, you're talking about a developmental guy. You're not talking about a guy that's going to be expected to come in day 1 and compete for snaps, or even in his second year. You might not even have that expectation for him either. And so you're also looking at a guy that probably is going to be here for 3-4 years. And yes. I know that that's something that this coaching staff really values and that they really want. Jim Nagy values and really wants. He wants guys to be in it for the long haul, not just be in it for either the quick buck or that expectation of, hey, I'm going to play right away sort of a situation. No, people that are willing to trust the process and trust that developmental process that Oklahoma has a track record of doing. So this is, again, it's a solid addition. Is he going to star right away? Probably not. That's okay. Just trust the process, trust the coaching staff, trust the front office, trust that evaluation, and believe like this has been a very low-key recruitment also. And I think that part of it you can't understate that because so much of recruiting anymore is not low-key. You very rarely find guys that it's like offer 1 month, get that commitment next month, bingo, bango. He shut down his commitment or his recruitment, and he's ready to go. He's supposed to have an OV with Tulane next weekend. I don't imagine that's going to keep happening.
Yep, that's out the window.
Here we are. You've added a player with a really high ceiling and a solid floor. Gotta love it.
Something the Sooners have been needing. We've been needing some of these small victories. And again, we talked about this on numerous occasions. The one thing to recognize with the way the Sooners are doing it this year in comparison to years past is Nagy's come in and he's reevaluating everything. And this was the first big recruiting weekend that the Sooners have put on, especially at long week camps. So now they're really going to be digging their heels in and trying to get dudes to start the commitments. So hopefully we still maintain our traditional track record of having commitments done by the beginning of August or mid to late August by the end of the season. Basically before the season starts, have the vast majority of your players committed. We did that. We've done it years past. You usually have like 1 or 2 stragglers. But the goal is to have everything done by the first game of the season. Then you can focus on the games, do some visits for some players you may want to try to get, especially if the season is successful and the team goes out there and shows out. Then you may have a chance to try to flip a guy or get a player that you truly coveted. But right now, the main goal is 100%. Please believe they want to get as many of these dudes committed by the end of July. And I expect August, the first weekend of August, when they have the Palace at the Prairie, the party at the Palace or whatever, I expect them to have a good amount of commitments done right there by that weekend.
Yeah, it's recruiting season for Oklahoma. It's recruiting season on Locked On Sooners. We're going to talk about some of the other prospects that were in town over the weekend, including one Bowe Bentley coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts. We saw that in Game 1 of the NBA Finals, and can't miss moments as Game 2 has led to a Thunder victory. Whether it's a game-winning shot that Tyrese Halliburton hit or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get into action. Well, FanDuel's making it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big, like getting ready for the next game. The Thunder are looking like a 4-point favorite on the road, and you can go in if you want to build a parlay. Grab some players. Shai Gilgeous scoring over 25 points. Match him up with Tyrese Halliburton getting at least 25 points. And you can even add Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams. So many options are there. And the cool thing is that if you put in your first $5 bet, you'll get $200 in bonus bets if that bet hits. So check it out. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com. Place your first bet, $5. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there who are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Jay, it's a big recruiting weekend for the Oklahoma Sooners. Let's start here with Bowe Bentley. What's some of the buzz that you're kind of hearing out of that? It sounds like Oklahoma put their best foot forward.
Yeah, it sounds like Oklahoma threw everything at the Bowe Bentley. Heck, I wouldn't be surprised if they just drove up a red Bentley up there on the field to get Bowe Bentley's attention. I don't know. But I do know this. They put their best foot forward. They had him in for the entire weekend. They showered him with great attention and a lot of former players to have conversations with. And the one thing you did notice most of all is that when you look at the pictures that Bowe posted on social media or pictures that others posted on social media, you saw him with John Mateer. And I point that out as a critical component is because Bowe Bentley is basically a Mateer clone. Now, Mateer was not highly coveted or highly recruited as a player. I mean, his little acts, they weren't the greatest team, but Mateer showed that he's a gamer and he's out there to win. Bowe Bentley's similar, but Bowe is a monster right now at the high school level. I mean, he's accounting for thousands of yards and like 70-something touchdowns. The dude's ridiculous. Let's put it that way, John. So you saw them roll out the red carpet, and the goal is to bring him in, add him with a Jayden O'Neal, and be able to at least start to solidify yourself for the future.
Yeah, it sounds like they've done it as well as they could do over the weekend in their pitch. Now, will that lead to a commitment? We'll see. I think everybody's still just kind of waiting with bated breath. LSU's a legit competitor in this Bowe Bentley recruitment. If they can land this, it's a big win for them. At the same time, if they don't, it is what it is. When you go up against some of the best recruiting schools in the country, it's going to be tough to land some of these kids sometimes. But I think where Oklahoma stands, based on everything that you can hear out there, they like where they're at. And that's a good place to be. Now we'll see what his timeline is going to look like. I don't anticipate necessarily we find out over the next couple of days, but I wouldn't imagine that it takes very long before we hear a Bowe Bentley commitment. I think you and I were both talking that we anticipate sometime before Champ U Barbecue we'll have a decision. Now, that's our guess. We don't have any sources on that. We don't know that for sure, but we're just kind of reading tea leaves, guessing based on what he said and that he wants to peer recruit. He wants to be a part of the process. Champ U Barbecue is the next big event for Oklahoma on the recruiting trail. That's just a couple of weeks away. So again, our guess. Some other big time prospects were in town. Jay, who's the next guy that kind of you want to discuss or is like high on your list of guys you really, really want to get in Oklahoma?
I'll say let's start off with the trio of wide receivers that definitely showed up. You had Dallas Dickerson, the wide receiver out of Georgia, whose recruitment is starting to explode now. I actually seen that Georgia is really heavy into him now. The 6'1" wide receiver is also a track kid. Definitely one that has intrigued me, but it sounds like Oklahoma has a good chance with him. Davian Groce, as well as Jayden Pettit, are two that also, when you add those three together, man, that could be a really good haul at the wide receiver room, and Pettit can potentially play tight end as well, but I think he'll end up being a wide receiver at 6'4", 200 pounds. You're probably going to have him similar to what you got like Ivan Carry-On. You're going to have him as just a giant wide receiver on the outside, terrifying the competition. But Groce is one that, out of Frisco, Texas, is the one that I am probably the most excited about. He's a top 80 player on all 4 recruiting sites at minimum, and he's considered a top 10 player in the state of Texas, which means something, John. That means that that's a big deal. And it looks like Emmett Jones has put out his best foot forward with him, and his family is like legacy, big-time Oklahoma fans. So, if you mention the names of a D.D. Westbrook or a Ryan Broyles or, CeeDee Lamb, Davian knows those names. Those names he's watched as a child. He watched growing up, or he's heard it through family. So in the trio of it, man, Davian, a.k.a. Agent Zero, he will be a fun pickup, similar to what you got out of an Elijah Thomas.
He reminds me a lot of Elijah Thomas and a lot of CeeDee Lamb. And I think some of that comes from getting the opportunity to play some running back, taking some carries out of the backfield. He's a true athlete. He could probably start for a lot of college football teams as a running back, or as a wide receiver. Like, if you look at the 136 FBS football teams, any one of them would love him either as a running back or a wide receiver. He's that talented because he's so good after the catch. He's so good in open space. He's the guy. Like, if you can land him, that gives you a guy that can play in the slot. He can play on the outside. He's so versatile that you can use him in a number of ways. You can use him in the return game too, because of his ability to break tackles, play in the open field, create yards after contact, and make guys miss in the open field. So very intriguing names there at wide receiver. Oklahoma needs to start landing some of these guys and start developing some of these guys. Like Emmett Jones, like, you've done a good job on the recruiting trail. We got a lot of blue chippers in there. Now it's time for those guys to produce so that we can keep getting those guys moving forward. On the offensive line, Jay, they had a couple big time blue chip prospects in Noah Best, Deacon Schmidt, and there was a Rivals Futurecast issued for Noah Best on Sunday. And to me, that's really intriguing. Now, Oklahoma has kind of been in a really, really good spot for him for months. This is not anything new. If you look at the predictions, the Futurecasts, there were some from like 3-4 months ago favoring Oklahoma for Noah Best, but this just kind of reinforces things.
Yeah, Noah Best is one. You get the Futurecast for him, especially coming from a Missouri analyst. That tells you everything you need to know.
Yep.
That they're anticipating that he's already turned into Chip. Usually when you start to get those floods of the opposition doing that, especially when like visits are coming up, I do think Oklahoma has a really good chance of landing Noah probably by Champ U, but he's another good one. Top 40 in the state, 6'4", 290 him. And then Deacon Schmidt, though. I mean, if you can pull another kid out of Colorado, you got Joshua Bates, who, you thought you had a lot out of Bates, and unfortunately, long-term, it didn't work out. Injuries, it just didn't get to the point where you were hoping for. But Schmidt, man, coming in at 6'5", 320 day one, and he's a thick kid, and he looks like he's got good mobility for that size. He could be a difference maker on your offensive line going down the line. He's got a lot of big schools after him. I mean, he's got the Tennessees of the world, the USCs who's throwing all kinds of money at kids. He's got the Nebraskas of the world. He's got Colorado throwing heavy coin at him to try to convince him to not leave the state. But I think Oklahoma has a really good chance with him as well. I think him and Noah Best, adding them to Will Conroy, probably need to add one more offensive lineman, one more tackle probably.
Tackle type, yeah.
Probably need one more tackle type, and I think Oklahoma maybe that's solidify another really, really good class. Now, I mean, you would like to have a Felix Ojo. Now, I'm not going to even get y'all's hopes up on that situation because, I mean, it's fluid. And we all know that everybody and their moms want to get them a Felix Ojo in their class. Oklahoma's still working on it. I think he's supposed to be visiting in the next couple of weeks. I think he's supposed to be coming to Champion Barbecue weekend, and he shows up then. That to me says that he may have some true interest in being a Sooner. We'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly significant interest from Felix Ojo in Oklahoma, but he's also very interested in Texas. And that's just one of those that will Texas let another 5-star offensive tackle get away from him? We'll see. All right, let's end with this before we go. Danny Odom or Elijah Golden? If you had to have one, Jay, which of those guys would you want to have?
Oh, man. See, that's the tough one, right? Danny being a big corner. We all want these 6'1" corners to go in the SEC. And he plays in Florida, so he plays against SEC talent all the time.
Yeah.
Golden,
SEC talent that's like, they want to work and get dirty and grind and things.
Yes. You're getting that out of him. Yeah. But Golden and who was it? T-Ron that I saw been floating around. He made a visit as well. Whoo! I'll probably go Odom.
Okay.
I want to see Jay Valai's room grow and develop, but I need to see that first. Now, granted, I think this is the year we get that out of him. I think in Danny's pictures, you saw Jacoby Johnson out there with them or whatnot. And if Jacoby just doesn't trip and fall, he's got some ability to keep up with everybody. So I think that room's going to develop nicely. Defensive line, I'm not even as concerned anymore because we've seen Bates and Chavis bring in some talent. And I want Danny though. I want some more big corners.
Yeah. It's the area that, hey, we still have a little bit of a question mark.
Yep.
Defensive tackle, not so much. Obviously, you want to keep adding defensive tackle talent as you go, but you feel really, really good about the future right now with where they're at. With Trent Wilson as a true freshman, with Brian Harris committed in the 2026 cycle, your defensive tackle group is really well solidified for now and in the future. But cornerback, we got to see something out of it. But college football is changing once again. Over the last decade, it's changed so much with transfer portal, with name, image, and likeness. And now we have another big change happening in college football. We'll discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Again, thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Jay, the House Alston NCAA settlement finally came through. It's the thing that everybody's been waiting on with bated breath to figure out what the future of college football looks like, and it is here. Revenue sharing, direct pay for play has arrived in college sports.
It's such a fascinating piece, too, because the bigger thing you get out of this is that they'll have this federal group that's gonna take the NIL deals that you got to go through a clearinghouse or whatnot. Mm-hmm. And John, I'll be honest, I don't feel like any of that's gonna be successful. To me, the settlement's a great starting point. This is where we're going to begin in trying to figure out the direction that collegiate sports should go. You've already got states that have put together laws to where their state laws will supersede anything federal because they're going to tell their state schools that they're not allowed to follow federal regulations. They can only follow state regulations, which is going to allow them to finagle ways to pay kids. And if there's a penalty, they're going to say, nope, you're not going to penalize us because we're going to ignore you anyway. So many red tape components in this that we're still fighting through and trying to figure out. That I'm just like, what does this actually mean to start? What does this tell us? Now, I'm not all doom and gloom with this, John. For me, what I take out of this as an initial thought is we now have a starting point. We have a place to begin figuring out how to salvage the sport that we all love.
Yeah. And so what this is going to look like is, for the most part, starting out, schools will have up to $20.5 million readily available to begin distributing to their student athletes. A large portion of that is going to go to football at most schools. Now, you're going to have those Big East schools that are going to be, prioritizing basketball. You're going to have the North Carolinas, Dukes, Kentuckys, Kansases that will put a little bit more into basketball than maybe some other schools. A place like Oklahoma may put more into softball than they put into something else. But football is going to be the thing that drives the bus on that, because it is going to be that. NIL is going to be a separate part of that. Schools, though, can directly negotiate NIL deals for players, though. That's a little bit of a turning point in some of this, is that NIL is not completely going away. It just allows that to come more in-house. The hang up, though, is any deal valued at $600 or more has to go through the Deloitte clearinghouse, and they have to evaluate, is it legit? Is it fair value? Like, all that stuff has to be evaluated. So I kind of joked, like, you're going to see a lot of $599.99 deals, so they don't have to go to the clearinghouse. It'll be like a 1-day deal for that much, but whatever.
I guess the question to me is, where do you get the fair market value when it comes to name, image, and likeness? Yeah. That's where the slippery slope of lawsuit capabilities come in, because I remember reading one of the articles stating that basically any public trading company, they are exempt from any of this stuff. So that means that Nike can do all the stuff that they were doing for Oregon and nobody's going to blink an eye.
Yeah.
Jordan Brand can do whatever with like Oklahoma. And honestly, that kind of benefits Oklahoma. Jordan Brand can do a lot more stuff with the players. Even, with MJ there, North Carolina and Michigan, who all have Jordan Brand. So the Jordan Brand, all these big companies that want to do that, Under Armour for Maryland, if they really want to dig into it, they can do the same thing. The public trading companies were considered exempt. And I get that, because how you going to tell a public traded company if they're not allowed to do what they want to do with their own money? Yeah. Now, I mean, they have scrutiny that they have to answer to when it comes to their shareholders, but I think people are overblowing that, thinking that, the shareholders are going to regulate. No, they're not. Marketing budgets are marketing budgets. Yep. They blow that money all the time. It's going to go to whatever they feel like makes the most sense.
Right.
And if the owner is a big fan of a school, the school's going to benefit from it.
Yeah. The other element of this that I think is going to be most intriguing is the roster limit part of this.
Yes.
So roster limits set at 105. The SEC, though, came out and said, okay, you're going to have 85 scholarships up to 105 roster spots. Where it all lands is going to be interesting, because I don't know if that's necessarily the final stroke on that number.
Yeah, it's like we don't have much clarity on. So it's 105, but they're grandfathering in any players that lost their spots because of the reduction down to 105. So technically, if Oklahoma wanted to, they can go out and re-recruit the players that they kind of had to tell go get in the portal in order to hit the 105 number, and they could throw them back on scholarship or do the NIL scholarship thing if they really want to. Mm-hmm. They have the capability to do that. So now they're willing and able to do that, because that was the one thing that the judge, and this is what held up most of it, was that the judge's issue was that she did not want any kid to lose their scholarship just because of the reduction in numbers. Mm-hmm. She's like, nope. That to me is a non-starter in this conversation, and if we do that, we have to make sure that those kids do have a fair shake still. So we're going to grandfather it, and so everybody came to their agreement and said, all right, we'll move the number up for all the grandfathered in before this program, and going forward it'll be 105. So again, if Oklahoma wants to go out there and get those players, they can do that. They're right there for them.
Yeah, or if there's any other, JUCO kids or FCS kids that they want to try and lure away, I mean, there's still time to do it before fall camp comes about.
Very fair point.
And there's a lot of kids out in the portal still that, maybe they find one or two that they still really like, and now there's a spot available to them. Was there anything else that stood out to you about all of this, Jay?
No. So I think the other thing, the last thing that I'd say I'm going to be keeping my eyes out on is going to be this clearinghouse thing, and how exactly they plan on trying to find a way to regulate this. Because seriously, I know, so it was Tennessee, Georgia, and I don't think it was Florida. It's another state. They all have their state laws where they put those in literally right before this settlement was signed on purpose to be able to circumvent some of these rules. And the one thing that comes into that is this college football commission or whatever, college sports commission, is going to have the ability to regulate or kick teams out of their conference if they're not willing to follow the rules. I'm curious to how exactly that's going to be enforceable, because it's going to be really hard for me to see them saying, Tennessee, you can't participate in this because of your state laws, and that being okay. At some point, we've got to get to the Super League, and in my opinion, the way the Super League will be successful is if you have the teams and then you pay a licensing fee back to the school to use their name, image, and likeness. And then you pay them to rent out their stadium and you do all of that. To me, that's really the only way for it to work. Now, outside of that, John, the last thing is, what's the NCAA going to do about this transfer portal? We're going to get that one date. Because what it sounds like is everybody wants to agree to it only being in January, which that would be a massive game changer.
Yeah.
And it also could hurt at the same time.
Yeah, it's one of those that I don't think everybody fully has a great grasp on what the unintended consequences of one transfer portal window could be. The NCAA college football playoff schedule is still a mess as it relates to the transfer portal and the spring semester starting and all of that. So there's still some things that need to be ironed out as college football continues to evolve and they try to figure out how to best move forward. But yeah, you got to figure out the transfer portal situation. It's not a great situation, and they got to figure out a way to create some limits on that. Like these guys that transfer every year or have transferred 3 times in their collegiate career. I think that's kind of rough, man. Like, and some of it could be processing, but some of it could be, those guys just want to jump ship too. So I'll be curious how schools enact some contracts to prevent that. The guys that they want there to be, to be there for 3-4 years before going off to the NFL. How do they write that language in that prevents them from jumping after a year or whatever? Are there going to be escalators? Because the cap can grow, the rev share distribution can grow over the next 10 years. And most people estimate that by year 10, it'll be closer to 33.5 million or 33 million. So that's going to grow a lot. And it could even grow even further beyond that. We'll see. But that's just kind of the estimations starting now. A lot of it's going to be determined by revenue earned by all these programs. And it's going to be an average of the power schools. And my guess is the power 4 schools. That's going to create the average rev share distribution.
It's going to be an interesting conversation. Ready to see what it looks like.
Yep. Can't wait for overthecapcollege.com. I'm going to be spamming that thing so much, Jay. Just takes me back. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Not hit that YouTube button. Sorry. It's been a fun but long weekend of pool parties with the kids, and I'm just dragging. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel on YouTube, Unfair Sports. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. You can also follow me at John 9 Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer.
Sooner. It's okay, John. The weekend's over.
I'm just glad you're back, dude. It's so much more fun with you.